So hi guys, and welcome back to the Always Wired podcast. My name's Martin Hamilton. We've got a special treat for you today. We have the return of the Mac podcast, which will just be an exclusive MMA podcast, which we're doing because our MMA Twitter has been outstanding recently, and that's a market we're looking to dabble into a lot more because that seems to be where a lot of our viewers are. And I'm a big MMA fan, and as you can probably tell by the t-shirt, I'm quite a big Conor McGregor fan as well, which we might get into a wee bit later. So unfortunately, it's just going to be myself doing the podcast today. We were supposed to have two other guests, two close friends of mine, but due to unforeseen circumstances and kind of schedule and work commitments, they were unable to do it. But these things happen. So the viewers at home, you will have to listen to my dull tone for the next 15 minutes, half an hour, but I'm sure you'll be able to power through that. So just to kick off, I thought we would do maybe my top five MMA stroke UFC fighters, just to give you guys a kind of insight on the type of fighters I like. Maybe you might start to think what type of fights I like. So I was under a wee bit of pressure to actually do this list. So I thought, if you're under pressure, what does pressure make? And it's diamonds, baby. So at number 5, we have Dustin Poirier. At number 4, got to love the big guys. It's the Predator, Francis Ngannou. I don't think I've met anybody who isn't a bit of a Francis fan. I think there's always something unique about seeing freaky guys of that size who can do what he does, because you know it can just be over in the blink of an eye. So Francis Ngannou, he's not a fighter you'll go for a cup of tea halfway through his fights, because you probably missed it. At number 3, it's Israel Adesanya. Since making his debut into the UFC, there's just been something about Israel Adesanya. It's just pulled me towards him. I like his fighting style. I'm a real big kickboxing fan, that old kind of K1 style, and I think he's starting to get elements of the kind of grappling in there as well, which is massively improving him. And now he's that verge where he's about to hit that kind of superstar status, and he's getting more mic time, because we've seen it in the Mike Tyson and Roy Jones Jr. fight. He was actually on the mic alongside Snoop Dogg. He was doing a bit of commentary. He's been doing some stuff for the UFC as well on the mic, and he speaks really well, and he's quite a polarizing figure. He drags you in. You kind of believe what he's saying, and he's just really good all round. Israel Adesanya, and hopefully we can see him become a 2-weight world champion this year, because I think the guy deserves it. I think for a guy like Israel, it's only really the sky's the limit for him. His potential is unrivaled, and I hope we get to see that fight between him and John Jones, because they both talked a lot of shit to each other. They both said some pretty vulgar things, talking about parents and all that, and that's the type of thing you want to see settled in the octagon. And at number 3, this guy might come as a bit of a shock to people that don't really know me, but it's Cody No Love Garbrandt. So Cody, he's got to be one of the fastest guys in the UFC. And I just love that kind of brawler style he's got, where he kind of bites down the mouthpiece and just swings. I know it's maybe cost him a few fights, perhaps the 2 fights v TJ, and when he get knocked out by Pedro Munoz, but it's all part of the kind of mystique of a Cody Garbrandt fight as well. Like, you don't really know what's coming, and he's got to be. I think he's the quickest man in the UFC, isn't he? I don't think we've seen anyone who hits as hard as he hits. And again, he's another one that talks really well on the mic. I would like to see him maybe distance himself a wee bit more from Ali Abdelaziz, his manager, but obviously it's his manager, that's never going to happen. But I think it'd be in everyone's best interest if he just maybe left him a wee bit, because all his fighters kind of come under the same mould. They're all quite unlikable, and I would hate to see Cody Garbrandt go down that route. And at number 1, it's actually a tie at the top, and it's two pioneers of their sport in their own country. I think you've probably guessed the first one. It's the notorious Conor McGregor. As Conor said before he came to the UFC, he wasn't just wanting to trap the door of the UFC. He was wanting to kick it down to allow more of his teammates to follow in behind him. And I think we've seen that with the likes of Aisley Daly coming through, Paddy O'Houlihan, and then like the mass of talent you've got now over in Bellator, because Bellator basically done a recruitment drive round Irish fighters, and that was predominantly due to the great work done by John Kavanagh and Conor McGregor. So he really has took that sport in Ireland to a whole different level. Before Conor McGregor, MMA wasn't being covered by mainstream media in Ireland. It was quite a taboo, quite a niche market. Same way most countries, actually, to be fair. Like Conor McGregor has took the sport of MMA from essentially niche cage fighting, as it was called back then, to a recognised sport, a recognised art. And I think fans of combat sports everywhere should be kind of grateful that we've had that superstar just to take the sport to that next level. And the other one, it's Bellator's finest. It's Chris, the bad guy Bungard. Again, he's another one who's helping take the sport in Scotland. That's where I'm from. To the next level. He was the first Scottish guy ever signed for Bellator, and since he was signed by Bellator, we've now got the likes of Chris Duncan in there, who's going to be huge. Chris Duncan will hopefully be a world champion in the next few years. I've got every faith in him. Undefeated fighter. Robert Whiteford, the first Scottish guy to be signed for the UFC. He's now in Bellator. Ross Houston, Cage Warriors welterweight champion. He's now in Bellator. So again, that's the door opening for a lot of Scottish fighters, because they've seen what Chris Bungard brought. His first fight, when he choked out Terry Brazier in about 40 seconds, jumps the cage and the crowd goes mental. He brings that kind of mystique that maybe some of the other fighters don't bring. He brings that personality, that charisma, the way he talks in the mic. It's very appealing and it sells fights. That, and Chris Bungard's just a great guy. Like he does a lot for charity. And I remember I was going to watch him when he was fighting in the Onyx in Linwood. He was fighting in the regional scene, and there's been no change. Like how he reacts, how he interacts with his fans, how he is as a person, especially online. He doesn't seem to have changed from that guy that I met and got a picture with in the Onyx until a guy who was fighting Brett Primus. So then we'll recap some of the UFC performances this week. I feel it'd be a major disservice if we didn't talk about Max Holloway. Max Holloway's performance against Calvin Kattar was perhaps one of the most dominant we've seen in UFC, specifically with striking. He made a world-class boxer look like he didn't deserve to be in there with him. That's a very strange concept, because Calvin Kattar he's one of the best fighters in the world, and especially at featherweight, he's one of the best featherweights in the world. And Max Holloway made him look like an absolute chump in there. Like when Calvin Kattar was trying to hit him, I think it was the fourth or fifth round, and Max Holloway is not even looking. He's looking at the commentators, and he's dodging the punches, shouting that he's the best boxer in the UFC, and then throws a no-look jab. He made him look foolish, and at times you don't like to see that, because obviously it's two guys at the top of their craft and you don't like to see one of them be humiliated. But I think Holloway done it in a way that was he done it to send a message. He wasn't doing it to belittle Calvin Kattar. He wasn't trying to be a dick about it. He was quite fair. And to be fair to Calvin Kattar, he was saying a lot about Max Holloway's boxing before the fight. He was saying that he's a senior and Holloway's a freshman at boxing, and he's got to take him to school. So I think you reap what you sow a wee bit, but I've got no doubt as well that Calvin Kattar will be back. He'll be back better than ever, and hopefully we can see, if Max Holloway isn't getting a title shot next, hopefully we can see that a fight with him and Zabit, because I think that'd be a great fight. It'd be one that really pulls the fans in as well, and it's that huge step up for Zabit. But Max Holloway, if he beats Max Holloway, he's getting a shot at the title, and I think that's the kind of fight Zabit needs to be looking to be taking right now. He needs to take that jump up in quality. Because he fought Calvin Kattar, and it was a good fight. I'd have preferred it to see it go 5 rounds, because in the 3rd round, Calvin Kattar started to take over a wee bit as well. And that's one of the things I say about Calvin Kattar. Same as the criticisms that said about Max Holloway, he's a bit of a slow starter. But then once he gets going, he gets going. But it was a 3-round fight. Both fighters knew it was a 3-round fight, so I don't think we can use that against the beat. I would love to see him and Max Holloway in a 5-round main event. I think it'd be a great fight. Everyone would tune in to watch it. And one of the fights that most shocked me, the UFC last Saturday, it was the return of Santiago Ponzinibo, the Argentine. He was one of the fighters I remember watching him live when they came to Glasgow. He knocked out Gunnar Nelson in the main event, and I thought he would be destined to kind of make a good run at the title. Expected loads of big things from him, but he won 2 fights after that. He was the last guy before Michael Chiesa to beat Neil Magny, and after the Magny fight, he seemed to be battling a lot of illness. He was out for 2 months and came back then to fight I can't remember the guy's name, the Chinese fellow. He fought him and get knocked out in the 1st round. Like, it wasn't something I was expecting. I was expecting Ponzinibo to come out, use his jab, use his world-class striking and kind of take over in the round. But what we're seeing as well, especially in MMA, it's happening to a lot of the sports as well, is the Chinese are starting to kind of get a foot in, and I can see them start to take more of a lead role. I won't be shocked in the next maybe 5 years if all the title holders in the UFC are European or Asian. I think the Americans now have a really tough run for their money, because a lot of these Asian guys, a lot of these European guys, they're now taking what they know. So take the Dagestanis, for example. They've got world-class wrestling and they're going over to America, training at the likes of AKA, and getting that kind of that high level of stand-up as well. So within the next 5-10 years, I can imagine the Europeans and the Asians are just going to take over. And then that takes us on to Wednesday nights, where we've seen perhaps the fight of the night between Mason Jones and Mike Davis, which was a great fight. I think, in my opinion, I think Mason Jones was unlucky not to get the nod. I had him 2-1. I think he won the 2nd and the 3rd, but it's one of the ones you can't really argue with it too much. It was razor close. Both guys put on an amazing display. I don't know if maybe my bias towards Mason Jones is maybe what's pipping him in my mind, but he's one of the Celtic brothers. You've got to kind of back him. But no, Mason Jones showed his quality. Mike Davis is a really tough guy with great boxing. But Mason Jones, he went out. He showed why he was a 2-weight world champion in Cage Warriors, which is something that was really impressive as well, because he won the lightweight championship, and he didn't just rest in his laurels there. He looked to jump up. He looked to jump up in weight, and jumped up to welterweight, and became a 2-weight world champion in Cage Warriors. I think he's only the 3rd guy ever to do it, behind Conor McGregor and Dan Hardy. So obviously he's in an esteemed company, and it just shows the level that there is on Cage Warriors. So albeit on paper, Wednesday's card didn't look the best on paper. I think most people would admit it, but it was outstanding. I think most fights throughout it were bangers. We got to see the UFC debut of Umar Nurmagomedov. His cousin's a Khabib. And I think Umar, he looked different from a lot of the other Dagestanis we've seen. But when we've seen Khabib make his debut in the UFC, when we've seen Islam Makhachev make his debut in the UFC, they all had, you could just see it, they relied a lot on their wrestling. They had a strong wrestling background, and the striking, they were kind of novices in the striking area. But Umar came out with crisp striking. He had a variety of kicks in his arsenal as well, which really impressed me more, because he was like keeping him at range with his kicks. Because I can't remember the guy he was fighting, the guy from Kazakhstan. He was Molodov. That's it, Molodov. He's a real hard hitter. I was watching videos of him before the actual fight to see who Umar was fighting. and he's got real power in his hands. And you've seen that as the fight went on a wee bit more, and that's when Umar started to showcase his ground game. So, as I was saying earlier, like Umar, he's starting to reap the rewards of the Dagestani tribe coming to America and training at AKA, because he looked phenomenal. He looked great all round. His striking was strong. His wrestling was good. He was taking him down at will, and his jiu-jitsu was top drawer as well. So he wasn't heavily relying on wrestling and kind of keeping a dominant position on top. He was looking to finish the fight with submissions. He was looking to be strong in his feet. His boxing was good. Quite a traditional Taekwondo approach at times, the way he was whipping the kicks, but it all worked in his favour. And I think for a UFC debut, he looked really good. He looked really strong, and I expect to see more out of him. Yeah, as we were mentioning earlier, this podcast is called the Return of the Mac podcast, so it's going to feature a lot about Conor McGregor and Dustin Poirier's fight, which is happening tonight, as this is filmed on the Saturday. So it'd be difficult to talk about the upcoming fight without mentioning the last one, maybe what went wrong or what went right for the fighters. I think McGregor came out well in the last fight. He was opening up with kicks. The first attack he threw in the fight was a hook kick. He was landing those kind of spinning back kicks to the body, which we've seen McGregor throw numerous times throughout his career. I felt McGregor's posture looked a lot better than Poirier's. He was more relaxed. He was fluid, which allowed him to be fluid with his motions. So when McGregor was throwing his punches, he wasn't overexerting himself through the punches. He was able to just throw it as if he was just hitting pads. Whereas Dustin was carrying a lot of kind of tension throughout the whole kind of build up to the fight, because we've seen McGregor getting in his head a lot, especially during the press conferences. When they were doing their interviews, you could see Dustin was getting agitated. He was showing it in the stare-offs. He was visibly becoming aggressive towards the crowd at times, which was, especially at the weigh-ins, which was very strange for Dustin Poirier to act like that. He's usually a calm guy, and that showed in his fight, because in his fight he was just, everything was loaded up. He was flinging single big shots. He wasn't trying to work his way in. But we've seen it before. Dustin's got a habit, especially when he's fighting off the back foot, that he can kind of drop the hands. He done it a lot in that fight, and Conor punished him. I think it was about 93 seconds in. You seen Dustin drop the hands, and through then it was game over. Conor comes over with a hard left, hits Dustin with a good combination, and manages to get the TKO. So I think in this fight, that's something Dustin needs to be wary of. Dustin's known to kind of get drawn into brawls. He likes to hit big shots. We've seen it against Max Holloway, Eddie Alvarez. They had an absolute war, especially in the first fight. And when you're fighting Conor McGregor, you need to be more savvy. But Dustin Poirier, he's grew a lot since the last McGregor fight. He's come on leaps and bounds, especially in the striking department. He's far more experienced, because he's got more of those high level guys' names on his resume. Since the Conor McGregor fight, he's beat Anthony Pettis, who was a former champ. He's beat Justin Gaethje, who was a former world champ at Bellator. He's beat Eddie Alvarez, who was a former world champ. And he beat Max Holloway, who's a former world champ as well. And he won the interim lightweight championship. So Dustin himself is also a former champ. And having those big fights, fighting those big fighters, that'll help Dustin loosen up in there as well. And we've seen in the build-up to this fight, it's been a lot different. It's been more kind of camaraderie. McGregor's linking a lot of his behaviour recently to becoming a father, maybe for the second time. He's got another one on the way. That and growing up, they both seem to have matured. They're not young men anymore, so the kind of trash talking doesn't need to be there, because they've got nothing left to prove. These two guys are two of the best. They're two of the best fighters in the division, and they'll both be getting into the Hall of Fame. So it's been good to kind of see the build up, kind of see see that kind of nice side of McGregor. Like they've been shaking hands, they were exchanging sauces last night at the weigh-ins. He got a bottle of McGregor's proper 12 and McGregor got a bottle of Dustin's hot sauce. So it'll be great. And I think the fight Dustin Poirier had with Khabib as well will massively improve his confidence, because Khabib's he's the best guy in the world at 155. He's undefeated. He's undefeated for a reason. He's fought 29 fights, undefeated, submitted some of the best guys in the world. And Dustin nearly had him, and that's something a lot of people forget when they talk about that fight. Dustin had Khabib in a mean guillotine, and like Dana White said as well, any other fighter in the world, they don't get out of that guillotine. He believed that it's only Khabib, which he makes a fair point. Like he's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, so his submissions they're incredible. And I think that could be a key factor in the fight as well, because that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, like Conor McGregor, he's 4 defeats in his MMA career. Joe Duffy, Nate Diaz, Khabib, and the guy that was the second fight in his career, I can't remember his name. I'm sure someone will put his name in the comments, so please do. I think he was... I can't remember. So we'll move on for that. So they've all been via submission. You know, when Conor looks to be tiring a wee bit, he does present opportunities to take his back and submit him. So if Dustin can hang in the fight, hang in the first couple of rounds, I think the momentum might start to swing in his favour. But again, you need to get Conor McGregor down. And that's something that's massively underappreciated about Conor McGregor's game, is his wrestling defence. It's not an easy task to get Conor McGregor to the ground. Ask Max Holloway. Like, do you know what I mean? Conor McGregor dominated Max Holloway in the grappling. I know you might say Max Holloway was just a young boy, but so was McGregor. It was McGregor's second fight in the UFC. And his grappling's only improved since then. Like in the Khabib fight as well, he showed great grappling defence. And a lot of people might go, but he get took down. But who does Khabib not take down? Khabib's probably the best wrestler in the UFC. And McGregor was able to hang in there on some of the transitions and looked pretty good. Eddie Alvarez as well. Eddie Alvarez is a great wrestler and struggled to take Conor McGregor down. So I think that might be some of the issues Dustin might face this time as well. If Dustin looks to take him down, I don't really see it until the later rounds where Conor's maybe a wee bit tired. And this fight has been great to see, because it's a great charity element around it as well. A lot of the money for this fight is going to the Good Fight Foundation. Something that Dustin Poirier worked really hard on. And it's great to see that. It's great to see two absolute dons of MMA giving something back to the local community, because the lives that will be changed through this, like Dustin's going to be able to open up a new gym, which will bring loads of new kids in off the street. It will bring adults in off the street. There'll be kids out there that'll take up martial arts and maybe stay away from crime. They might become more disciplined and go on to be more functioning members of society, because that's some of the life lessons that martial arts gives you. It gives you you don't lose. Like, you either win or you learn in martial arts. There's no real win or lose. You win or you learn, as John Kavanagh says. And learning that in an MMA gym or a martial arts gym, that's something you can then go and apply for in life as well. So when you lose, maybe if you don't get a job that you go for, you're not as disheartened, because you know something else will come round, something will be round the corner, and it'll allow you to be just maybe a better human being as well. And adults, you're able to go in, you're able to work on your fitness, you're able to go in and meet new friends. You might have moved to an area and you don't know anyone. A martial arts gym's a great way to go in and make new friends. It's a great way just to feel a bit better about yourself, maybe learn some self-defense, so you're not worried in confrontation, because you know how to handle yourself, and it'll just give you that wee bit better quality of life. Both fighters are looking outstanding in the build up to this. Both of them are looking in great shape. There was a lot of things said about Dustin Poirier maybe looking a bit sluggish in the press conference. People think his weight might not have been on point, might have been suffering from a bad weight cut. But I think every fight people make those accusations. I I didn't really see it in it personally myself. I think you'll only really know tonight when you see both of them getting into fight. They both look in great shape, and I'm expecting a hell of a fight. So just to round off the podcast, I'll give you my prediction. And my prediction for tonight is I predict a Conor McGregor win via stoppage, via TKO or KO. And I was saying to all my friends that I believe it will be in the first round, but I wouldn't be surprised if it goes to the second round. So thanks, guys, for listening. If you've liked the video, just give the video a like, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and we'll be bringing you more MMA content. And drop in the comments who you think will win, how you think they'll win. Maybe who's your favourite top 5 MMA fighters. So thanks for listening, guys. This has been the Always Wild podcast. I've been Martin Hamilton, and thanks.